Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the End in Mind podcast. I'm your host, Caitlin. We have a very special guest here with us today. Thanks so much for coming on, Nichole.
Caitlin, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Yay. It's going to be
Yay!
really powerful. I know for the listeners, we were just like chatting so much, catching up, and to give some background before we kind of dive into the thick of today's episode, Nichole so very generously gifted me one of her healing sessions, and we will have a code for you all to book with her below. For a one-off session or package sessions, what I can tell you guys is it was massive for me. My whole life, my perception on life has changed. I think a lot of us in entrepreneurship don't always value things like energy healing at the level that we should. A lot of you are energy healers, so you may understand what I say, like when customers don't always understand it until they've experienced it. I am also an energy healer, so I know how powerful it is. But this session in particular came at the right time with everything I was going through with my mom. And we're still on that journey, but being able to create differentiations of energies. So thank you so much again for gifting me that session. And I just am so, so grateful for it.
You are so welcome. And I'm so grateful that you said yes. And like what we've briefly talked about, as well as it creates a different type of relationship, right? And we know that just what you mentioned, many of these types of things are experiences. And so I know you help clients with this. And that was part of my journey that we'll talk about is when you're trying to articulate something that is truly a gift, it can be challenging. And the best way I've found for people to be able to understand my gift is offering the experience. And so I'm grateful that we had that because now, regardless of what I say, you get it, right? Because you actually had your own personal experience that you felt impacted you in a positive way. So, again, like you say, a lot of times in some of the healing art spaces, that's what could be challenging if it's not the cookie cutter or the structured approach you may have been taught, but it has a layer of your literal gift, right, that's been given to you and you're trying to put that out into the world.
Yeah, like in marketing, how do you even describe, the
Exactly.
journey?
That has been my pain, sister. So,
Yeah, well, hopefully
yes.
this will help,
Yes.
today's episode. And what I can share with you all from more of a high level too, just for our listeners. So a lot of you know, my mom fell ill about 2.5 months ago, emergency surgery, very stressful situation for my family. I also lost my dad when I was 15. And I'm getting married in 7 months. So there's a lot of layers to having generations, to oversee and, of course, bless our marriage. A lot of pressure, like just internal family pressure. And what Nichole helped me do, as I mentioned, was separate some of this energy between my mom and I that I had facilitated and created this like cyclical cycle. It was draining me, and I want to be able to support her from my highest self. I think a lot of our listeners can resonate with this, even on an entrepreneurial side. If we're serving from that low vibrational energy, of course we're drained. Of course we're not doing our best when it comes to nurturing and building client relationships. Same thing in the real world, right? It all is connected with internal relationships. So since my session with Nichole, my mom has literally made a 180. She
Oh my
is
gosh, that is
walking.
amazing.
Nichole, it's amazing. My mom, like, she's a badass, right? Like, she did all
Yeah.
of this, so like, go her. And I don't want to take any credit for it, but I do feel like I was sucking her energy,
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't fueling her the way that I wanted to. It had the opposite impact. And yeah, now she's walking around. She went to Whole Foods yesterday. She got her hair done. Like, she's leaving the house. I mean, the woman has been in bed for 2 months, the poor.
Wow.
So yeah, really massive. And then the other piece of this is also my relationship with my father, with which Nichole helped me see areas of trauma that maybe I didn't recognize were coming up in that relationship. And now my dad and I have such a beneficial relationship with him on the other side, which I have shared a lot about on the show
Mm.
in previous episodes. But overall, it was just so healing. And to top it all off, I actually had this strange sign where there was like a baby bunny rabbit that I messaged Nichole about that passed away. And in a weird way, it kind of felt like a sacrifice of like,
Mm.
the relationships and like kind of
Mhm.
death of that old identity of me sucking the energy.
Mm.
And now like being able to come in and pour positive energy in,
Mhm.
in those relationships now.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And I could even hear the love and the resonance, right, when you talk about it. And I just really celebrate you for having an open heart and the work that you had already done that created such a seismic shift, right? Like such a that level of activation, because I think sometimes in other modalities and things that sometimes is a challenge for us is we know from a safety perspective or opening up or allowing someone to kind of go into spaces that then reveal other things. And so I just really celebrate you for doing the work prior to this to say, you know what, I'm going to come in this space and be open. And I'm going to see this as a sisterhood, right? Of us co creating the opportunity for what's ready to emerge and to make the shifts. And so I think that's one of the biggest things that I've learned about my work. And when and we'll briefly talk about that, but like when I'm working with women, it's really, really important that they are ready for the openness, because the work I do is very different, and I am able to see and tap into places, right, that you're not telling me of. And so I'm very mindful of, just like when we chatted, we had a conversation first, right? Like, let's talk through this experience. Let's make sure this is something that works for you. But that's a big thing that I've realized in just conversation. Even if you're working in other modalities, if you aren't open or you're not ready for that level of exposure, I invite you to maybe pause, because whether it's a psychic or a shaman or even a therapist, right? If we have certain guards, it can be challenging for us to get the support that we need. And so that's sometimes where folks are like, well, it's not working. And I would always ask, how open or ready is your heart? And if it's not, that's okay. It's just you having a level of awareness that you are co-creating, right? That's what we talked about. I can't do my work if you're not showing up in the process with me, right? I don't have a magic wand and be like, you just sit there, have your heart closed, honey, and I'm going to jump over a fence or block open a wall, right? So I think that's another thing too, just to share is this isn't a one-way exchange. It is definitely in a partnership.
Yeah, that's so true. Like I could feel the shift happening. So I'm sure if you're resistant to it, it's like doesn't really have the outcome that some
Yeah.
want, and what would you say to some of those listeners if they aren't open yet? I love how you mentioned therapy. We talk a lot about therapy
Yeah.
on this show, and like subconscious, but also conscious,
Yeah.
because there's so many layers.
There's so many layers. I would say honor it. So, one
Yeah.
of the things I think on our journeys that sometimes, given whether it's belief systems, trauma, other experiences that we know naturally can create that resistance or create an element of something feeling threatening, right? Honor that, because I think sometimes too, we may judge ourselves because we may extend and want help, and then we'll judge ourselves because we're not open, right? So I would just say honoring it. Honoring can be, you know what, let me sit with why this may feel scary, why this may feel uncomfortable. What do I really need that helps me feel safer, especially if you've been called into someone's arena? Like I've had women be like, I can feel that I'm supposed to work with you, but it's not now. I said, celebrate the fact that you can feel something. And then maybe you need to go through, what else do you still need? Is it another conversation? Is it, working through your inner work? But that piece I think is really, really important. Um, and I think it's having more people in your corner that honor you for that as well,
Yeah.
right? Because sometimes we can get a little forceful when we want people to heal and we want them to see the light, and right, we'll be like, no, but you should do it. That's actually not ideal. Right. So having people like, oh, you're not feeling it yet, that's okay. Right. And maybe even helping you with timetables and things. But I think that's another important thing of balancing what we know of kind of this just do it, target focused energy that is necessary for us to make changes in our lives, but also being mindful of where we are sitting, and we don't want to re-traumatize. We don't want to create additional triggers and activations that don't support us either.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. I feel like a lot of people in our spaces sometimes indirectly cause
Hmm.
harm than good. And they're coming from that good place. But, there can be so many other aspects of that. And I've shared on this show, like in 2020, when I launched the show, it's actually just starting, like a lot of
Hmm.
mental health work.
Okay.
I share a lot about it and how it affected my relationships and my business,
Hmm.
much I was like reflecting and deflecting people from working
Yeah.
with me because I wasn't looking at myself. And a lot of that inner work was through like meditation and stillness. So, for our listeners that maybe feel like they're not there yet, try out those modalities, reach out to Nichole. She may be able to provide you with some resources. Of course, I can as well, just from my own experience. Would you like to share with us a little bit more about your journey, how you
Sure.
got into this work, and share with us some of your background?
Yeah. And before I move into that, I just want to acknowledge just exactly what you said of experimentation is key, right? So allowing yourself to discover, if it's meditation, if it's taking a walk, if it's whatever the case is, allowing yourself now to honor the reasons, but also experiment. Because what happens too is what was working before may not work in the next phase. And so if we're not opening ourselves up to curiosity and experimentation, we can block that. And the reason why I also use experimentation is because you may try something and it doesn't align, right? You may need to meet with a few coaches or therapists or a few healers or, light workers or whatever the case to kind of find your fix. Because again, if you haven't given yourself the opportunity to kind of explore in that way, you're actually checking in to see what works for you. Because again, many a times what we've actually gathered has been somebody else's plan. Right? Right? Of like what we should be doing. So I just want to stop and share that too. So if you're thinking like, man, I'm really not sure, maybe go, I sometimes call it treasure hunting, right? Just try a few little things and one's going to end up being a jewel, and it'll work out for you. But yeah, I'm happy to share a bit of my background and how I got here. Is so I took what people consider the traditional path. I went to college, got a couple degrees, went straight into corporate. I worked in business management consulting for the majority of that time, doing the things, right? Traveling the world, got the titles, got the financial, what everybody says, oh, you're good, right? Everything should be great. And then my mother was diagnosed with cancer May 2018, and she died September 22nd, 2018. So when you talk about your mom and her vivaciousness and her boldness and right, just living her life, that was my mother. And then to then see that decline was so devastating, right? And so the blessing I had though is I was working for a consulting firm that I could leave, which is a privilege, right? I was able to go on leave. Every financial thing was taken care of, and I could take care of my mother. And I say that because that truly is a privilege to see others who couldn't be by their loved ones because they had to go to work. It gave me so much more appreciation for what I had to be able to do that. So I was able to leave my job and become the caretaker and caregiver, right, of my mother, and be with her until her last day, until she took her last breath. And many people go through a loss and they feel a shift, right? And there's an element of grief. However, many of us aren't aware of what it actually does to us, mind, body, emotion, spirit, because we were never really educated on the biological and physiological effects of it, right? We know sometimes emotionally, like, oh, they'll be sad or they may not want to get, but we don't know it impacts your digestion, it impacts your thinking, it impacts your mood, all these things, right? And so the other thing with me is I literally had a spiritual awakening. I literally, when my mother left this world, I felt something shift in my body. And so my mother was born psychic. My mother had gifts, but she hid a lot of it because of the stigma, the time, right? There were some things that were going on with her. And so when she passed on, I literally felt like a baton being handed over to me, right? Now, it was very scary because I started seeing and feeling and all these things. Now, I'm already a sensitive person, but just it was on 20, okay? And so through that process, all of a sudden, I just had this desire to learn more about the mind. So that's how I got certified as a meditation facilitator, hypnotherapy, because I wanted to understand how we ticked, right? Like I wanted to understand the body. I became certified as a health coach, the Reiki master. All these things were part of this awakening for me, but also really wanting to understand what was going on inside of me and heal myself. And I didn't want to use the traditional methods because I saw what happened with my mother with just traditional Western, medicine. It did not take and incorporate those other things. So fast forward, I'm going through this journey. I end up leaving corporate America through a divine message from my mother who told me to leave. I did not have the plan. So ladies, if I don't say this is for everyone, but if you do feel that, listen to it, right? Like had I tried to be logical about things, I would not have gone on the journey that I've gone on. And so I ended up leaving corporate America 2021 and went straight into the work. I started as a life coach, though. I started with what felt normal, right? And health coach. And then my gifts just started activating, Kayla, and I could not deny them. I will say one of the biggest activations was Reiki, and I know you're certified in Reiki. And the other was emotion code and body code, which is a modality where you tap into the subconscious and help individuals release emotions that are stuck in the body. And through that, I started having telepathic experiences. So I would hear the person telling me versus me kind of going through the kind of structure. And then I had to do that with pets, and I would hear them telling me what was happening with them and what was happening in their body. And it freaked me out. Because I was
Yeah.
like, wait a minute, I'm following this thing, but I'm getting all this other information, right? I'm like, I'm hearing way more than the modality was saying, the framework was telling us. And so that's what really brought me to this. And so fast forward, when we talk about the integration of some of the kind of technical skills that we have versus our spiritual gifts, I say that all of those things were activations. So the certifications for anyone who may be going through this and you're like, well, why did I do this and I'm not using it this way? It literally can be an activation into your remembrance. So that certification in Reiki wasn't really about the Reiki. It was a remembrance that I actually had the gift as an energy healer. It was the emotion code and body code really wasn't about that. It was that you have telepathic and channeling gifts, and the way that spirit could give it to me was in something tangible that was logical to my brain. So I just share that with others because I'm getting chills. Someone's gonna listen to this like, oh my gosh, because sometimes we needed to come through that cognitive logical lens because that's the world we've been living in. But there's something spiritual behind it. So I just want to share that. And that's what led me to the way I do the healing work that I do now. It's called the liberated heart because I started off doing traditional energy healing tied to the heart. Spirit said, you're here for liberation, which is my brand, right? And it said, well, you're helping women free themselves from the pain in their heart. You're here to liberate and activate. So that's my own proprietary method, right? Like, it's come through me, but it was an element of the condition kind of framework, but with my gifts. And so that's what led me to doing that work in that way. And there's many of us that I feel in this new age, that's what's happening. So you being this marketing guru strategist, right? But the spiritual elements coming through, I believe that's the new age. We're actually supposed to integrate them. They're not supposed to be separate. It's not you fighting between your spiritual gifts and your intellect. It's actually them working together that we're actually going to have the superpowers that we were here to bring to the world. So that's a bit about that particular piece. And then I do intuitive coaching and retreats, but just wanted to give you a bit of the storyline, particularly with the work that we did together.
Oh my gosh. Like, come on, you guys. This is like, oh, everything, like this is what we believe. Like, this is
Yeah,
truthfully what I believe as well. Like you
yeah.
said, they're not separate. Like,
No, they're not. And we're taught that. I mean, when you think about, again, that's why this liberation piece, right? I would invite anyone who's listening to say, what have I been doing? What's been in my storyline? What has someone said to me that does not feel freeing? Just maybe start there because sometimes like the liberation feels like heavy and like deep but like there are things you could probably make a list and say that doesn't I don't feel free doing that. I feel stifled. I feel stuck. I feel bound.
Yeah.
And then that opens that enlightenment to say, oh man, I actually do know. I actually can see where there are some opportunities. And many times it is for us between us being very intellectual and having these intuitive hits or our instinct. And we've been told to choose between them, or we're emotional, but we can't be logical. Like one has to overpower the other, right? And so I would just invite, if there was one thing you took away from this, is saying, what's in my life doesn't feel freeing? What doesn't feel expansive? What feels constricting versus expansive?
That's amazing. That's such a great, like, very core question for all of us to ask ourselves. And I was just taking notes the whole time. Like, I felt like I was getting like downloads as you're speaking.
Yes.
Like, I was just like, this is so good. Like, I mean, you can't even really describe
Yeah.
it until you work with someone like yourself, but you said
Mm.
it so
Oh,
perfectly
thank you.
with incorporating your journey. And a lot of our listeners have also lost parents,
Okay.
because of
Yeah.
experience too. So we all resonate with like feeling called,
Mm-hmm.
and you hear it over and over and over again. But so many of us been scared out of it, or people say things. And like you said, it's that box, right? And
Yeah.
what they've been trained to think. So
Yeah.
like
And I
it's
think,
no harm.
yeah, and I would add too, the thing that may help, that what helped me is realizing that some of it was done to perhaps keep me safe.
Yeah.
Right? So when you think about, I mean, we're in a new era with a lot of things coming out and spiritualists, and I think that's a great thing about social media where you don't feel alone, but many people felt very isolated in that, right? And so some of the safety for any of us that are multi-passionate or quote unquote unique, or wanting to step out into that uniqueness, is recognizing that some people's intentions are good, like we talked about. They're maybe trying to keep you from going that path because they're trying to keep you safe, or they've seen what happens when you release those things, right? That was a thing for me. I knew people that thought the work that I did was of the devil. I
Wow.
mean, literally, right? Like, this is evil. Like, that isn't appointed to people in this way, and that's a familiar spirit or something, right? And one of my first clients that came to me was devout Christian, that actually had spoken to her family, and they said I was of the devil. And
Wow.
she felt I was not. She felt I was of God, that I was of light. We helped heal her through this modality of her experience of being in a narcissistic relationship for 2 years. She had 4 sessions. She said she had done a 180. She was a totally different person, and she was back to her gift. And she said, I know Nichole is of God, and she was sent here to help heal people. So I say that when you stand out in that courage and when you listen to that call, people will come into your life to confirm and affirm what you know to be true. She was one of the first people to confirm and affirm, and it's making me emotional, right? Of what I was doing, regardless of what others may have said. And so that's something I'll just impart into anyone listening. Those people will show up, and they will remind you that you are supposed to be doing this work. And I get emotional because that's what I share with you, right? Like, it's people like you that remind me that I have to do this, right? Like, this is my soul's calling. So, yeah, and I know I could go on forever. I appreciate you. I so appreciate you.
Thank you. I so appreciate you. I'm emotional as well. So forgive me if I'm also gathering myself. I, you were sent to me, we were connected through an amazing contact, but I've been waiting for someone like you to really see the parts of me that I have shut, and
Yeah,
that I was afraid of, and when you work with someone like yourself and specifically you, there's this real sense of safety.
thank you.
And I know that your first client felt that too, and maybe had never felt that her whole life, and again, it's not her family's fault or her fault. It's just life. And,
Yeah,
people like you of light and abundance and prosperity in the mind body connection is
yeah,
so much deeper, than, not to talk crap on therapy because that is what
Yeah.
led me to you, like
Yeah.
it's a
Yeah.
very important stepping stone in getting to be open to working with you. But this work is what I'm really passionate about. And I know our listeners are going to be like so excited to
Mm.
connect with you because you are just such a gift to this world. You really are.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And what I will add to your point around whether it's therapy, coaching, healing, art, whatever it is, I think our biggest thing is, again, being more expansive, right? Like allowing ourselves to think beyond the tradition. Because to your point, therapy has a place, and it has a place for a lot of people, even particularly just to start the journey, right? Because that might feel safer based on, the licensing, whatever it is, right? The licensing, or that was a tradition, or whatever the case is. And so I think that's the biggest thing I've also learned with myself is it's the expansiveness of tools. There are times that I have needed a therapist for cognitive behavioral work traditionally, right? I've worked with a somatic therapist that I needed, that person was certified in a body space, but I also needed people who understood the expansiveness of my uniqueness, who could integrate, like you say, the spirituality, like we talked about, the intellect, because that was real where my real gap was. Someone who actually was an integrator, someone who could see the intersectionality of that. And that's where I felt most isolated. And so I appreciate you share that, because that's what I realized my gift is. I'm a bridge, right? So anyone who's trying to bring those two pieces together, that's how I serve women in their transition, because many of the women I work with, that is their challenge, right? They're wanting to bring all of themselves together, and they've had to compartmentalize their therapeutic experiences, right? They've had to isolate into one category for this and one over there, and that's exhausting.
Yeah.
It can be very exhausting, right? So I thank you for acknowledging that for me, but I just realized that's my gift. I'm for the women who are looking for that specific desire in their transition, right? In their
Yeah.
personal liberation journey, as I call it.
So beautiful because the categorizing of ourselves is also another box, right? Like
Yes.
that it's so not freeing. Like I
Yes.
remember I shared this on the show before. I like got diagnosed with PTSD and I'm like,
Okay.
whoa, like am I in this box? Like I'm so
Yes.
traumatized. I remember I went for months, like even my poor fiance, I'm like, I'm broken.
Yes.
He's
Oh
like,
my God.
what? Like
So,
you
and you bring up such a
assuming.
powerful thing too. This is a thing too that I invite anyone. A diagnosis can be support in at least having knowledge and awareness, right? So when we shifted to say, okay, these things have been put in place so that I have something that I can anchor this thing in, right? But it does not have to be how I declare myself in my identity. And that to me is where we end up personalizing ourselves, right? Internalizing these labels and diagnoses. And that actually, from a physiological perspective, constricts us. So Deepak Chopra talks about this a long time ago, probably like 15 years ago. He talked about even using the diagnosis of word of cancer, because of how it is in our external world, actually starts to have platelets stick. Literally.
It's crazy.
Literally. So the power of your words are important, right? Understanding that. So if you're using language, for example, when we say PTSD, I've been diagnosed with PTSD. It means that I've experienced trauma experiences that are still running in my mind and body. It is a way for my mind and body to tell me that I'm out of harmony. So I use the harmony word a lot. It is thank you for giving me a sense of awareness that something's out of alignment. We have all these beautiful signals in our bodies that we haven't been taught to pay attention to. You drive a vehicle, the engine light goes on. You don't say, my car is a piece of crap because the engine light. You might. But usually you're like, oh gosh, the engine light's on. Let me go take it to see what's going on, not throw the whole car away.
Right. Wow.
Right? We have all these signals, but we haven't been taught to have the same signal. And that's what I learned from when my mother passed. I didn't experience panic attacks. I started having them when my mother died. That's what took me down research. Oh, grief can create this shock factor where you go into threat response literally, and your body starts thinking it's at having a threat response, that it's unsafe,
Yeah.
right? It creates a signal. So those are things that I would invite anyone as well. If a word that has been used is creating more pain and friction and conflict, perhaps using different language, right? And perhaps recognizing that the diagnosis at least allows you to have a place to start, but it is not your finish line. It is not your destination. And the body literally regenerates itself. So you can heal, but it's the shift in that language, to your point. I am experiencing versus I am. I'm experiencing anxiety. I am not, I am anxious says I am the identity of anxiety.
Right. Yeah.
Right. I've been diagnosed with post traumatic, but it's saying that I'm having traumatic experiences that are replaying. So now I'm going to actually work on healing those recorders that keep playing, because we're going to teach them to stop playing, and we're going to release whatever's been held in our bodies so that we can get back to balance.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. The language of the
The language, literally, our body takes in language based on what we've interpreted in the outside world, and it adjusts based on that. So if we're using things, if people, again, I just invite you. I had, for example, in coaching, I don't use the word homework.
love it. Yeah.
Homework sounds painful. It does not sound exciting at all. One of my clients, we call it her life design work. She's like, I'm redesigning my life. So what's the next task in designing my new life? I'm building foundation, right? Or love work. Oh, yes, I want to work on the love for myself. So simple things like that will create more excitement and curiosity of getting back to self.
Yeah, yeah. Because that identity piece is so big for everyone,
Yes.
and like, especially in entrepreneurship, where like,
Oh, yes.
who am I? I'm evolving every day. Like, I'm seeing new pieces about me that are like, whoa, I reacted weird to that interaction, and we
Yes.
have to have a lot of love, right, for those pieces of
Yes.
ourselves too. But yeah, that's such a good point to your rhetoric and like what we're actually saying to ourselves. Even when my mom was going through this,
Hmm.
and she was in the hospital and she was having difficulty healing in the hospital setting,
Mm.
like, statistics around how
Yeah.
this
Oh, it's horrible.
it's horrible.
It's
I'm like,
horrible.
we need to get her the hell home. And like,
Yes.
literally within a week and a half, I think it was probably 2 weeks, then she had to go back in for some sort of complication. Well, she was healed. Like,
Hmm.
it healed while she was at home. And that's what she and I kept saying to each other. The second we get
Mm.
home, it will heal. It'll all heal.
Yeah.
And I think the rhetoric that they were using in the hospital was harming her. It wasn't
Oh, for
talking about
sure. Our
healing.
Western medical system is created to address symptoms, not the root. It's
Yeah.
overworked, and many people are burned out. So you think about the energy of those who are supporting. But yes, I mean, it's so powerful to declare your what you want to experience, and again, having others who will declare that with you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. Like the power in the
The
number.
power, yes.
And
Yeah.
that's what I felt like working with you. It was so powerful because I could be open, I could be honest. And then, like you said, it was just like, okay, and now that's over with. And like
Mhm.
able to move forward as if these energetics had been rebalanced.
Yeah.
The purpose of today's podcast. I can't go into like too depth of it.
Yeah.
It's so like
So
complex.
yeah, so I will share to your point that we didn't share that makes this a little bit, if you're okay, of like what's a little bit different, right? Is that this work, if anyone's done any energy work, say a chakra rebalance or something, right? It's rebalancing the energy centers. I'm doing something similar, yet I'm connecting to whatever those energies are specifically. And the beauty is that we are releasing them, and there isn't additional action. So that's the other part, right? That sometimes folks are like, do I need to do something else? And I'm like, actually, you don't. Now, there's sometimes guidance There's always hydrating and stretching and stuff like that. But that's also what I find women who come to me is like, oh, it's just a relief. I didn't have to talk so much about everything, and I didn't have certain actions to do. Like, it's cleared, you know? And so I just want to share that as well, because sometimes that's one of the questions, like, I don't have to do anything. Like, let me take out my notebook. You sure I don't? I'm like, no, you're good. We're just going to check in with you the next day. But that's what is pretty beautiful about it is I am speaking on behalf of the person, and sometimes that's where the relief is, because many times we may not want to articulate it, and that's what might be holding us right back. And so to have someone who can channel in and share those things that you are already feeling and releasing can be liberating in itself.
Yeah, it really was. And like you said, when we hear like do the work, like
Yeah.
it feels so heavy. Like you're like, oh my God, like this mountain, you know? Like that's literally how I felt. I was like, I'm so broken. Like I had to like stop working with that therapist, bless her heart, because I was overwhelming me, you know?
Yeah.
And
And it's powerful that you did that, right? Because I think that's another thing. You were in your self agency to say, you know what? They could be amazing. It's not to discount, they're just not the person for me,
yeah, yeah.
right? Yeah.
That's exactly how it was. And I know a lot of our listeners feel the same way. So I'm just so grateful that you came on, because I do
Thank you
think
for
that
having
you will
me.
be the light among us that can help us guide back to the self, recreating our identity of who we actually are, not who we've been conditioned to be. So, can you tell everybody how to get in touch with you? Of course, we'll have all the links in the show notes below, and where we can connect with you online too.
Yes, and thank you so much. Yeah, so I am mostly on Instagram and LinkedIn, and it is my name. I am Nichole Lee. So that's on Instagram and LinkedIn. And then obviously through my website, you can schedule sessions, you can schedule a call. I am the person who owns my socials. So if you do message me, it's me. I do want to share that because I know a lot of times folks are outsourcing. So if that's the easiest for you to want to connect or share your experience, I would love to hear from you. And yeah, and even if you have questions about the experience, similarly with in our situation, happy to schedule a 10-15 minute call to just even talk through that to make sure it's comfortable and alignment before you pay for a session.
Yay. Thank you so
Yay.
much, Nichole. I'm so
Thank you so much
grateful
for
for
having me.
you. Well, perfect. Hopefully, we'll see you back soon.